Okay. So this is session 3. And before we start on our session 3, first, thank you to those who came early, who had your presentations ready for us to look at. I appreciate it. They are looking really good. Everybody, I think, had some change I recommended, but they were really minor and some good ideas coming out of this group. So I appreciate that a lot also. So you had another assignment this month. So tell me about that assignment. Role playing and not reading it, role playing it 20 times with 20 different people. Who got to 20? Way to go, Jen. Okay. And the rest of you? Not quite 20. Okay. How about the rest of you? How many did you do, Cindy? Okay. So remember at the very beginning of session 1, Janet, this is where the hard-nosed part of me now comes out. Yep. I said to you, I'm just not that funny. That coming here to class 4 times with me was not for the purpose of entertainment, because I'm really not that funny. Okay. It was that in every single session, there would be work for you to do. Okay. Now, why am I here if you're not doing the work? Truthfully. You know, you made the comment of, would I look at your thing and if you sent it to me? And I said, no. And you said, I'll pay you. Yeah, no, I get it. But we will be here again next month and I will come early to look at anybody's schedule. But the reality is I don't need your money. And my time is valuable. I could be playing golf or taking a listing. So why am I here if you're not doing the work? I'll wait while you think of this. So why didn't you do the work? Okay. Okay. So are getting listings important to your business and your career? So I guess it is important. Are you better now than you were a month ago, Jen, at your presentation? Yeah, my guess is she'd go against anybody, including me, on a presentation and stand a darn good chance of winning because she practiced it 20 times. Even if you practice it a few times in the mirror at home, or if you videotape yourself and practice it and critique it. Only do that once or twice. Most of the time you want to give it to other people. All right. So next month, when I come back, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to do what we planned, which is talk about where to find listings. And we're also I'm going to go through the paperwork. I didn't realize that that was important until I co-listed a listing with an agent who's in this series in my Sugar House office. And he's an experienced agent from Atlanta, but he said, I haven't done one here. Would you co-list it with me? And normally I won't, but he's in my class. So I said, sure. That way he could learn and have to do the process as we do it here in Utah. And we got out of the presentation with the sign listing and everything. And I said, so wasn't that exactly like I did it in class? Because we had just had that class. And he said, yes, except, wow, you present the paperwork like it's so compelling and easy to get them to sign it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I had never thought about that. But we're going to do that next month, is both where we find listings and how to present the paperwork. So next month's class may go 90 minutes instead of 1 hour because I'm adding that section, but that's easier for me than coming back. Nobody has to stay for it. But here's my deal. I'm dead serious. You don't get to be here next month if you haven't done it 20 times. And I think that's fair. Because I think the whole reason you're here is because you want to get good at your business. And I'm telling you how to get good. And you got to schedule it. You got to plan it. You got to, I mean, you've got how many? 4, 7, 10. You got 12 people in this room. And I have no idea if we have people on Zoom or not. But we have 12 people in this room. How easy would it be before you all leave to just turn around and schedule each other? Now you're guaranteed 12 times already. But I'm not going to do this if I care more than you care. Is that a fair request? A reasonable expectation? All right, then that's the deal. Next month, I ask the question. If it's a no, you're going to be asked to leave. And you won't find out where to find the listings or how to present the paperwork. Deal? Okay, so let's get on with this one then. So this month's session is on overcoming objections with sellers. So rather than, sometimes we tell ourselves stories in our head about what we think a seller's going to say to us. Okay. Matter of fact, sometimes those stories seem so believable that we stop lead generating and hope we don't get an appointment because we don't know what they'd say, or what we don't know what we'd say if they said X. So before we get into all of that make-believe stuff, for those of you who have been on listing appointments, I would like to know, what are the actual objections that you have heard on listing appointments? Well, pricing it too low. Okay. 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 I think that's probably this one too, but let's. Okay. So another hand up.
They're not sure where to go. Selling is easy, but they're afraid of the next step buying.
Okay. I'm going to put housing here, so I remember that. This side of the room. Objections you've heard. Okay, that's not many. All right, what is the one you've thought in your head that they'll say to you that hasn't yet happened? Okay. I'm going to do other agent said. I'll put pricing on there. Okay. All right. What else? Janet.
Why would I go with you? You're so brand new.
Okay. Okay. Good one. What else? Right.
They're not going to do what I ask them to do, whether it's car bitch or staging or whatever it is.
Okay. So how do I put that down as, how do you think they'd really say that?
Won't take my advice.
Okay. Won't take my advice. Okay. Okay.
Someone will probably not use me. They're probably already, they said they have someone that they're probably already going to use.
Friend, a relative, yeah, got a friend, a relative, somebody else. Okay. Okay. Any others you can think of? Go ahead, Bev. Okay, so I think we'll cover that on friend or relative and also on the pricing one. Yeah, price too low. Okay. Yep. It's a personal problem. Personal problem. Okay. You know, don't come in jeans and a sweatshirt. There we go. That would solve that. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk to you about on objections is this, and it's why I'm starting this meeting just harping at you. And I hate being put in the position, by the way, that I have to harp. Just so you know, I'm blaming you all for this because it's not what I want to be doing. If you do a compelling listing presentation, you almost never get an objection. Okay? Am I right or am I right? I mean, I can't tell you that I get an objection every now and then. It's not a regular thing, but I have a really compelling listing presentation. So if you go and practice on your clients, it's a confidence thing and you're going to get a lot of objections because you haven't convinced them you're the person. So the very best thing you could do is 20 practices so that you are absolutely compelling. If you do that, you will almost always never get an objection. Am I right? I mean, it really is the truth. And yet it's the thing we shy away from doing. Everybody does. It's not just you guys. You just get the lecture because you're here today. So that's the first thing I would tell you is if you're getting objections, it probably isn't about what they're saying. It is probably about your presentation. So look at that first, okay? All right, but let's go through them. Pricing it too low, which by the way, might be the same as the other agents said, okay? But we'll start with the pricing at too low one and then go to the other agent. So the pricing at too low, certainly, Hiram, we're in a really wonderful seller's market, okay? And so you have the advantage of, I can promise you, you will never have been able to sell your house as much as you can sell it in this market. Matter of fact, for us, we're averaging multiple offers 90% of the time, 90%. And organically, because of the competition, they are rising and raising your price. But here's the challenge. If you don't price it where the comps say to price it, which is what we've just gone through, are those comparables, then two things can happen. The first is that as people are looking, they look at it and go, no way. And they don't come. Well, if they don't come, then we don't organically get it to rise, do we? We're counting on a large group coming. Give you an example. I just did one a couple of weeks ago. It was $1.2 million, so it's a nice size house. Comps came in at $1.2 million. That's right where we listed it. Okay. Ended up selling with multiple offers, $1.5 million. So you're telling me earlier that your goal was to get top dollar, right? That's still your goal. Right. But we get that by creating a bidding war. If we price it too high, they don't come. Okay? Pardon? Well, no competition. Yeah, we need them to come, not one to come. Selling your house is easy right now. Literally, Hiram, you can go put a sign up, you'll get an offer. You won't get the most. You won't get the most. That's the challenge. You'll get one offer. And your first offer, whether I have it listed or you put the sign out, is going to be your lowest offer. They're also the first one is usually the one that won't raise their offer when I serve them with a notice to give them 24 hours to give me their highest and best. Because I'm going to do that with all of them, whether that's 7 people or 47 people. Yeah.
Do you still do that though? When people, like you say highest and best, I mean, most people only submit their highest and best. Do you still counter offer highest and best on all of your offers?
Almost all the time. Almost all the time. And I disagree. They don't always give you your highest and best. Not always. It can be tweaked more. Okay. So is there any reason we should not proceed?
No.
Okay. Please note that I always ask a question that requires a no answer. Instead of saying, should we get started, which requires a yes answer, I always ask it in a way that's a no, because it's easier. People like saying no more. Okay. So I always ask it that way. All right. So let's try the other version of that. And that is the other agent said they could get more. Okay. Awesome. Show me their CMA. Let's look at what comparables they used, because I promise the comparables that I use are the same one an appraiser is going to use. So Cindy, go ahead and show me those comparables. All right. So here's what's really going to happen. They don't have any. Well, did he show them to you? Remember where they were? They didn't show them to him. No, I'm here to tell you, it's the truth. They just said, oh no, I can get you this. I had one truthfully in Daybreak one time. And she said, well, the other agent said, and I said, great. Show me what they came up with. Because I mean, here you've got yours. I'm leaving this with you. I bring them to them. Let's look at theirs. She did have them. Here was the interesting thing. Every single comparable she used, that agent used, was outside of Daybreak. I'm sorry. It's a world all its own in Daybreak. You don't be pulling houses outside of Daybreak to compare Daybreak. And I looked at her and I shook my head and I went, you know the difference between here and everywhere else? And she went, yeah. And I went, exactly. And this is exactly what an appraiser is going to pull. Okay. Most of the time they brought you nothing. So they eyeballed it. And here's the truth. They'll feel no qualms about coming to you in 2 weeks and saying, oh, I think we need to reduce the price. The truth is, if nobody's going to come and bid on your house, you're never going to get top dollar, Cindy. And you said to me that was the most important thing to you. So let's price it where we need to price it and build it up from there. Let the buyers organically build it. They organically build it higher than you and I would be able to build it. Okay. All right. Sound okay on that one? All right. Next one. Limited service company. You know, so-and-so will do it. Some other company will do it for less. Well, let me tell you a story. It happened this month. So a lady in my neighborhood, Kimberly, asked me to come out to her house. I'm in charge of cement in my HOA. She had a little piece of cement that was crumbling and needed fixing. So I went over to her house. Well, she had her house listed with a limited service company, I think the one you mentioned. And so I said, and it was under contract. So I said, you know, how'd you do? And she said, oh, did really well. We got a full price offer. And I went, oh, interesting. That's how I said it. Oh, interesting. Now, Kimberly's house was remodeled. She lives in the cottages where I live. She had the house on the market for $499,900. She got full price, $499,900. First offer. First offer. Buyer's very happy. Seller thinks she's in bliss, right? And when she did that, I found this out after the fact, not from Kimberly, but from last month when I was in Orem, and I'll explain in a minute. Not only did they cancel all future showings, they refused to look at any other offers, including a backup. So anyways, my response to Kimberly was, that's interesting. And she said, well, what did the one like 5 doors down that was not remodeled, what did that one go for? And I said, oh, it went under contract. They had multiple offers. $595,500. Yeah. $95,000 more based on a feeding frenzy. So here's the truth. Don't be foolish enough, Hiram, to step over dollars to pick up nickels, because that's going to cost you. And you already shared with me that your number one goal was to put the most amount of money in your pocket. Did I hear you right?
Yeah, but they're still cheaper. I think you could help them with them.
So you don't want to put more money in your pocket. You changed your goals.
I was reiterating what the lister said.
Okay. So I've used that one, the true story.
Correct.
Okay. You now have a story. You now have a story. By the way, 3 weeks ago, I was in Orem and I was sharing this story because they gave me that same objection. And the girl in the back of the room, whose name is Sally, raises her hand. She said, Lee, it is my client, who is also my husband's grandmother, who bought the house for $595.5 and tried to buy the other house because it was remodeled at $499, and they refused to look at our offer and canceled us. So I had verification of absolute truth then.
That's quite crazy.
Yes. So really, you're going to save, because let's say you go with the limited service, you're still going to end up paying the other agents, let's say 3%. You're going to pay them what was it, 1 or 2? What was it?
What was I gonna charge them?
Yeah, no, what was that limited service company going to charge you, Hiram?
They usually $1,000 flat.
$2,000. Okay. So on your house, which price is, let's say, 600,000. Okay. A commission, you're going to pay 3% to the other side and 2,000 to them. So really we're talking about less than 3%, right? Okay. So less than 3%. And Kimberly just lost 95,000 on a $5,000 house. How much percent is that? I'm really bad at math. How much is that? How much is that? I see. 20%, 3.
What's another strategy instead of just using a story?
Stories are great, you can't argue with them.
No, they are, but I'm just curious. If they like,
Okay.
well, that's a one-time story. I mean, my friend, he sold his home and he got $85,000 more for it. And he had a good chance. I didn't make a good chance with them.
Okay. All right. So the truth is you're expecting that that's going to happen. It hasn't happened to you. I will tell you that I've used the actual story and it works just beautifully. But we're going to actually get to that in just a second. Well, my friend or relative, but we can do it now. My friend or relative, usually what'll happen is, let's say, well, I talked to this other agent and they were going to charge 3% plus 2,000. Can you do that one, Jimmy?
3%, or how much total would be?
Well, just tell me that. Pretend you're the seller and tell me that I think I'm going to go with this limited.
Home would work because I'm only charging 3%, probably 2.5% with the buyer agent, and then 2,000 for home.
Okay.
Home only would be less than $10,000, or going at you would be over $20,000.
Right, right. And so let me ask you, how often did you have to ask the agent to do it that way? Or did they just offer that?
Do what way?
To do it at that lower rate?
The home agent offered it that way.
They just offered it. Certainly they know their value better than I do.
That's,
Well, it's what I say.
yeah.
Okay. But the next thing is this. So as we looked at my numbers, so let's relook at, and I've got my book in front of me with the numbers that you don't have in your book that are going to put in. So last year, it was 98% is what the average person got for their house, and we got them 102, so 4% more. So really, that was even money with what is happening with this other company you're talking to. But let's talk about this year. Because right now, this year, the average realtor is getting 100% and we're getting 108%. So once again, you're stepping over about 2.5% or stepping over 8% to get 2.5%. Now, here's the good news. Let's pretend, Hiram, for just a second, that I'm not as good as I know I am. Okay?
Okay.
And let's say we do our grand opening and we get our offers. And let's say they don't net you more money.
Yeah.
Do you have to take them?
No.
Nope. What if they offered you 20 or 30,000 over? Do you have to take them?
No.
No. So if I can net you more money, why would you not try that? It costs you nothing and you have a get out of jail, cancel at any time option with me, correct?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, because the way that I presented it, because I did talk to a home agent just to see how their system worked, and because usually they'll have anywhere from like 20 to 30 listings in a month that'll close. And so when they're getting multiple offers, they can't reply to all of them. And when they're getting 12 offers on every single house, and that's every single day. So I mean, you'll see on the reviews and everything that as a buyer, the agent's completely unresponsive.
Yes.
And I try to approach it that way.
Well, this is why the neighbor took the full price offer at her agent's suggestion at $499.9, because she doesn't get paid any more money. She's not vested in it. She doesn't want to do the marketing on it. She wants a one and done. So did she really serve her client well? Remember, she not only had the same house, identical model. Hers was remodeled, and the one at $595.5 was not remodeled. Who do you think that agent served? The buyers in themselves. Yeah, absolutely. They did not serve that seller. Okay. All right. So limited service and the lower commission. So that was the kind of one on the lower commission one. I use, certainly know they know their value better than I all the time. Okay. That flies right out of my mouth without a second's thought.
The lower commission one too, I've heard other agents say, well, that's a great question. My commission is 3%. You can offer the buyer agent whatever you want. Typically, if you do 3.5%, that's up to you. If you go lower, then you might not get the buyers that you need. But that's how you protect your commission, I guess, and leave it up to them. I just wanted to get what
Yeah.
you're kind of.
I don't let my sellers pay less than 3% to a buyer's agent. They work too darn hard, and truthfully, the buyer's agent controls where they're going to go see. And if they have other choices at 3, why, and I say this to them, why on earth would they come and look at your house when they can get a full commission here and you're going to give them a cut rate over here? So no, none of mine has never done 3, period. It's not part of what I do. It's not even that. I'm supporting my seller by getting him top dollar, by getting every one of you to bring your buyers to that house. That's in his best interest.
So I listed my house at 3.5%. I wasn't taking a full listing. And the offer that came through was well above asking price. My house is not remodeled. Like 5 kids beat the hell out of it. And I didn't have time to fix it up because we were under contract on the next one. But we got an offer that was well above asking price, no building costs, the whole bit. And when they came down to the inspection was ugly. And they asked for $2,500.
Mhm.
And I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
How can we sign? I said, did you enjoy the 3.5% commission as well? I said, don't think I didn't notice that. I get my buyer in this house because of that commission.
Yeah.
It creates artificial demand.
Yeah.
You're the buyer to become the seller advocate because they don't want to go look at houses at 2%.
Right. So anyways, yeah, I don't do it. That's my standard of practice. Okay. You're brand new. So if you haven't met Janet, she is brand new. She's not even on command yet. So be nice to her. I did that at the beginning so then I could expose my real self to her. But start with her being really nice. She's fragile as she's brand new. So I think the brand new is great. And I have a couple of different ways that I have advised agents over the years to handle it. I started when I was 19 years old. And truthfully, back then you just decided when you woke up you wanted to be a realtor and you were one. There was no training, no licensing, state of Virginia, you just were one. And because there was no training, Janet, I made every mistake you could make. So you have a great advantage now because you will have lots of training. You also have a great advantage of having an office filled with really awesome agents who are very experienced. So one trick I'll tell you before we overcome the objection is I learned at 19 where my average client age was 53. I remember that because they were actually the same age as my grandparents at that time. That there was a lot of times they were going to ask me stuff I didn't know. And that was terrifying. I'm kind of a control freak. And so I like having the answers. So I learned at that time to have a response when I didn't know. And that was, I'd snap my fingers and go, I think they just changed that, Janet. Where are you going to be in an hour? And let me call you back and just confirm that answer. If I ever do that to you, because I still do it. It's that I, every time. It's just a habit I've had for 50 years. That's one thing to just remember to do. You won't know all the answers. I have to tell you, at 68 and 49 years in the business, I still don't have all the answers. So we got to get over the having to know everything, because we'll never know everything. If that's going to paralyze you from doing stuff, you're going to have a problem. So just get over yourself. But I tell everybody I failed mind reading 101, and I don't take hints well. So you've got to ask me if you have a question. Okay. And all the agents here, it's true of all the Keller offices, they're always willing to help, always willing to answer. So don't hesitate to do that. Okay. Let's go back to the I'm brand new. So how long have you pretend you're the seller and say, how long have you been in the business or something? It feels like forever. Oh my gosh. You would not believe all we go through in real estate. And I carry right on with whatever. And sometimes it could feel like yesterday. Okay. You'd be amazed. That's an easy one. Okay. Another one is that you might use is it's going on a year. And thankfully, I chose Keller Williams, which is a training and consulting company. And with the 200 agents in my office, there are literally over 1,000 years of experience for me to draw upon. And then you could move on from there. Another is I'm new. Haven't been in business quite a year yet. But here's the truth. You want somebody like me, because I'm new and I'm hungry. And I'd focus all my time and attention on yours versus you going with some agent who's got, 10 or 20 or 30 listings. How much of their energy you're going to get? Me, you get all of it. Okay? So any of those are good. All right. Won't take my advice. Okay. So you be the seller, and I'm not quite sure at what point. I'm assuming it's after we've walked through the house and we've seen the things that need to be done. So we'll pretend we're at that point. Yep, you gave me a 10 earlier. They always do. Nobody ever gives me less than a 10. And so I've gotten permission to tell you as we walk through the things I would do. We talked about making a good first impression and why those photos are going to be done by a professional, but why you're going to do the work and get the house looking good. So now that we've gone through the house, how long do you think it would take you to do the things that we talked about that need to be done? Well, I'm only saying it because you told me your number one goal was best price possible. If you're okay just getting it sold, you're right, you wouldn't have to do it. We'd still get a good price, but we probably wouldn't get best price possible. So that was the only reason I brought it up.
I just don't know if we'll get any more money out of it than what we're going to put into it.
Oh, I guarantee you will.
Can't really say anything to that.
Well, and can I guarantee it? If it's cleaning it up, if it's paint and carpet, that kind of thing, can I guarantee they're going to get more out of it than what they just put in? Absolutely. Now, if he needs to add an addition to the house, I would not have told him to do that. Okay. So mine is all about decluttering. That's the number one thing we have to do, is getting boxes from Chick-fil-A and decluttering the house, depersonalizing it, making it almost feel naked to you. That'll be the perfect time for a buyer because they can envision their stuff and their family there. Maybe some paint, carpet, cleaning. Those are really, yes? Yes? I mean, that's almost always it.
I thought of a response. Took me a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
I just don't know if
Okay, well, and that's okay. We may want to give them a carpet allowance, something like that. Or we just don't say anything and know that they're going to come in and go, we've got to, we can't offer as much because we're going to have to put in 10,000 in carpet. By the way, every buyer is going to estimate that it is going to take 3 times the actual cost on any repair. So replacing of carpet, they're going to bank it way higher than it really is. Now, I will tell you that my carpet guy, who owns Steve at Weiss Flooring, just down at 104th, by Walmart there. I can probably get him to put the carpet in and have you pay it out of closing if money is truly the problem. Okay. All right. Then let's have Steve come out and give you. Now, here's my deal. Inexpensive carpet, but a thick pad. Okay. As long as you do the thick pad, it'll feel good. It'll last a long time and it'll bang for the buck, get your money back out of it, and then some. And I don't ever suggest you put money in that you don't get the and then some out of it. Okay. Any reason we shouldn't get started? Okay. 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 All right. So they will take my advice. I mean, they will. Well, I will work with them. And if they don't want to do the work, it's okay. We just need to know that they've changed their goal. Best price possible isn't the most important. The not having to do the work is most important. We'll still in this market get a good price, but they won't get the best price possible. That's the truth. Okay? End up in the back. Yes. That's why we asked those 3 questions, those 4 questions at the beginning, because I am going to keep coming back to what you said your main goal was. And I'm okay with them changing their goal, but I want them to say to me, they are changing their goal. Because if they're not, then, we talked earlier, Hiram and I, he was saying it's hard for him to get people on the phone to set the appointment. Isn't that kind of what you said? And so he talks to them, but try to get them to let him come over was hard. And so I role played with him and he said, so you're just pushy. Or he said, I just need to be more pushy. I don't think he said I was pushy. I think he said he needed to be more pushy. And I said, no, I don't think that's it. Truthfully, I think that, my personal mission is to help as many people get what they want as I can. I mean, that's just my deal. And so I know that they want to get their house sold. I'll almost guarantee that they want best price possible because that's almost always the number one thing. Not always, but almost always. And if I know I can do that for them, I'm going to be letting them down if I don't do that. So we role played that and he gave me a couple of objections to that. But ultimately, I don't think it's about being pushy. I think it's about being unselfish enough to want to help people. So my whole thing always comes from service. And if I come into every call from the point of service, I don't think of it as being pushy. And I don't think my clients do. My clients are raving fans. 80% of my business is coming from my clients. And they'll tell my new clients, because I'll often say, do you want to call the other clients I've worked with in your neighborhood? I'm happy to give you names and numbers. Call them up and tell them what it's like working with me. And my clients will say, she's really bossy, but just do everything she says because she makes magic. I know because I called them. Okay. So I think part of it is Hiram has to change his mindset from thinking that it's about being pushy instead to being unselfish and being willing to help as many people as you possibly can get what they want. Well, because it's in their best interest to not. So that's how I look at that. Okay. And by the way, what I say, everything I've said today, those are scripts. Those are just practiced. They just fly out of my mouth without thinking about it. And I want to do that because if I am that good and I practice my presentations, my objection handling, then the truth of the matter is, when I'm sitting across from Hiram, the only thing I have to focus on is what Hiram's saying. I never have to worry about what I'm going to say. It just flies out of my mouth. I get to focus on what Hiram's saying. And I'm going to challenge you all because I'm betting most of the time you're worried about what you're going to say next. you're listening and go, I'll have to tell them this, or what about that? And in your head, you're in a conversation with yourself instead of laser focused to what it is Hiram wants. That's what mastery of your scripts does. It allows your clients to really be the star. And that's what you want. Make sense? Okay. All right. Friend or a relative in the business. Let's do that one. Kind of the same. So that's always a difficult situation. So what company is your friend with? Coldwell Banker. I used to be with Coldwell Banker too. That's very cool. I don't know them, but I want to say to you, one of the things that I think sets us apart from anybody else is the marketing that we're doing. So I know for us, we do over 300 houses a year, over 350 houses a year. How many houses does your friend sell? Okay. It's your biggest investment. So I know that you really got to make sure that you're doing that. I'm sure they're really nice. So that's not what I'm implying, but you want to make sure that you're protecting your biggest investment. The other challenge that some of my clients have found sometimes is the fact that they have to share some personal and financial information. Sometimes they'd rather do that with a professional than with a friend. And you might have the relationship where you don't care about that, but I do mention it to you because it is a legitimate concern that sometimes people have. Okay. I'll tell you what I'd love to do. I'd love to help you sell the house, and I'd love to give your friend first dibs and bring in a buyer. In other words, we'll pay her commission if she brings in that buyer, but give her that first opportunity. And the hardest part is how you then go to a friend or a relative and say, gosh, I've chosen to go with Lee. Is that something that worries you? Yeah, it does for most of my folks when that happens. And honestly, when you look at what we spend on marketing and the marketing plan that we use, it's untouchable. So I think not making it about her, but making it about this big investment and making sure that you're marketing, you get top dollar, makes logical sense. And she's your friend. She cares. She's going to want you to get top dollar. So is there any reason we shouldn't get started? And then we'll call her and give her that first opportunity. Okay.
Or if they're in TW2, kind of rough.
Yeah, it hasn't happened to me. And I go on a lot of appointments.
It hasn't?
Nope.
Huh.
Nope. Not once. So I'm not guessing. The story in my head is telling me it's ever going to happen. Cindy.
So flip that, and when I think you're up against someone like you,
Mm-hmm.
got these big stats.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in my mind, I would play off the fact that, you give more personal attention, whatever, and my experience that I learned from being on the Stern team.
Right.
For 3 years. But any clues for us, maybe not competing against you, but some other big dog in the.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid reversal. I think in a situation like that, first of all, do you know that she's talking to the other guy? That's really going to be the biggest challenge, because so often, because you're a friend, and you need to know this because this could happen to you, they don't talk to you. They end up in a conversation, whether it's they met me at an open house or however, they went online to see what their house was worth and somehow ended up in my site or something like that, that you don't even know it's happening. Okay. So the best way to avoid that happening, Cindy, is actually having your 33 touch, having a VIP club. So how many of you have all of your friends in your 33 touch? 3 of you. The rest of you are at risk. I mean, that's truthfully. So typically, if she came against a big gun, you wouldn't even find out about it till after the fact. Okay. If you did find out about it prior to, and you did an effective job, they probably never end up meeting with me. But if you if I walked out of there and didn't have the listing, maybe you'd meet about it, but that doesn't usually happen with a big gun. We take the listing. But if that did happen, then I would go with, you're right. They do a ton of business. But again, nobody cares about you more and your well-being more than I do. I'm vested in a lifetime with you. And I would go with that route. Yep.
Do you ever just volunteer just to play the friend agent?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They go in and get involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that is the hardest part for them. And so I will absolutely call them. Yep. I did it to Claire McHugh, who died a couple of years ago, but this was probably 35 years ago. And it was a listing in Kearns on Heath Avenue. I still remember. And I listed it and then had to call her and say, Claire, I'm just sat down with your friend Cindy and we just listed her house. And she only listed with me because of the marketing that we do. But we wanted to make sure that you had first opportunity to bring a buyer because we have to pay 3% to you so that you can feel like this is a win also for you. And I do it right at their kitchen table. I want that person to see that I've done that, kept my commitment. Okay. And taken the burden away from her. I don't want her friendship to be, and Claire was funny. She's like, you're at the house right now, aren't you? And I said, I am. And we were just talking about how cool it would be if you brought the buyer in. And she said, you're really good. I said, thank you. I mean, the client's not hearing what Claire is saying. She's just hearing my responses, but that was exactly how that conversation went. Now, I'll also tell you something else. In Taylorsville, I was doing an open house one weekend. This is years and years ago also. People came in, they liked the house. And I said, well, call your agent. And they said, well, our agent's out of town. I went, I'm worried it won't be around. If you're interested in this house, let's write it up in your agent's name. And I wrote up the offer in the agent's name, got it accepted. And then when Claire came back the next week, called her up and said, Claire, it's Lee Stern. Congratulations, you sold the house. Let me tell you what happened. And I did. And she went, damn, you're good. I said, I know. Your relationship with other agents matters a lot. Okay. I mean, people will accept offers that I write because of who I am. And they know I'll get the deal done. And then I'm normally really nice unless you don't do your homework. And so keep that in mind, guys. I may do one deal with Cindy every 9 years, but I might run into Hiram and Janet on a regular basis in this industry. So be a professional, be a good guy. Okay? Don't.
Wait, so you can write an offer in someone else's name?
I don't know that you can anymore. This was before, no, really, this was before we had buyer's agents. And so I put in there was always a place that I put who was the agent. Now I probably would have had to call, Linda Walcott was her broker at the time. I would have had to call Linda Walcott now and say, Linda, can you write this offer up for the Johnsons, or who in the office could for Claire? Because they really want the house. They're at my open house. And I do it right in front of them so they'd know what I was doing and do it that way. But back then I could. Okay. No different. And when I'm at an open house and Cindy's people come through the open house, after there's a lull in the open house, because I've gotten their name and I've gotten Cindy's name next to it. And I wrote it down. I'll call Cindy and say, Cindy, the Johnsons, Mary and Robert, they came through. Honey, I think they're interested. Would you give them a call? Okay. I had one time, West Jordan, at an open house, and a guy came in and I'm talking to him, and one of my questions I always ask is, how long have you been looking for a house? And he said 6 months. And I walked up to him and I said, 6 months and you haven't found a house yet?
Yeah. it
Oh
sucks.
my gosh, honey, that hurts my heart. Because can I tell you what's happened in the last 6 months? In this price range home,
What's that?
it's gone up like $20,000. That breaks my heart. Who's helping you with that? And he said, well, I had somebody helping and they weren't good, but I have a new agent. And then he's helping me. And I said, great, who's your agent? And he said, Cram and Burnside. Grab my phone, speed dial, Cameron Burnside. Cameron, I'm standing here with, tell me again your name, honey. Hiram. I'm here with Hiram, and he's come through my open house. He said he's been looking for 6 months, but he's finally got you. Hey, he wants to buy a house in the next 2 weeks because these prices going up are killing him. Can you help him find a house in the next 2 weeks? Now, Cameron is on the other end of the phone. I'm sure wondering what is going on. Okay. And he's like, yes. And I said, okay, good. Then he's in good hands, honey. Thank you. I said, he will give you a call. He'll give you a He and Linda Birch put him under contract within the week. But the reality is, nobody had told Hiram that it had cost him over $20,000 to be waiting. And he's not my client. But again, if I come from a place of contribution, I don't want this young kid, and he was about Hiram's age, they're on his own, not being able to make good on this market, not being able to make his dream come true. So call the other agent and tell him. Okay? Hand it back.
When I was in going through my friend and local training, the guy teaching the class kind of gave us some type of scenario where
Mhm.
a person came in, open house, agent out, they leave the room back up, said, well, all right, you wrote it. Because I mean, what he said was, that agent wasn't doing what he should be doing. So he was
Yeah.
able to.
So I would never do that.
Neither would I, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely unethical. I've had people call me and they want to see a house. For example, on the phone, one of my listings or something, and Janet will call and wants to see the house. And I'll go, Janet, who's helping you with your purchase? And she gives me a name. And I go, if you call them, they can schedule an appointment to see that house. And they're like, oh, and she said, well, she's out of town. If you call their office, somebody's covering for them while they're out of town. So just do that, and then you can get in to see the house. And she said, well, can't you show it to me? And I said, I don't ever want to be in a situation where I'm interfering with another realtor. So no, you need to call your agent or their agent's office. Hung up the phone. Janet calls me back. Says to me, well, I haven't signed anything. She's just been sending me stuff. I get this in open houses all the time, but this was an actual phone call. And I said, again, I would remind you, if we write the offer, this person who's been sending you stuff that you haven't signed anything with would get no commission. I don't want to interfere with the agency of another realtor. Do you still then want to see it knowing those are the conditions? And she said, yeah, because I really don't know them. They just mail me stuff. And I go, great. And I handed the phone to my buyer's agent, John, and said, John, she'd like to see that house. Set it up. Okay? So I'm really explicit about it. I'm also explicit about the guys who walk in the open house and they don't have a realtor and they're going to do it themselves. So in Draper, I'm at an open house one day. I'm Manila. And I've got another agent there helping me because this was in the last probably 4 or 5 years. So it was busy. And a guy comes in and with his wife and likes the house. And I've probably got 3 or 4 other groups in the house also at that same time. And the guy said, well, I used to be a realtor, so I'm going to represent myself. And I said, cool. I said, I love it when I make twice as much money. And he said, well, I'm going to have an attorney help me with that. And I said, great, you'll pay him extra and I still make twice as much money. Cool. And he goes, well, hold it. Oh, so sorry. That's my cement guy. And that's hard to get a cement right now. There's a shortage. Anyways, he said, well, that's not the way it used to be done. And I said, oh, honey, I've been doing this for 35 years. This is the way it's always been done. And he said, well, I was in the business and for years and nobody did it that way. And then when the business went bad in 2007, I got out and I said, I didn't. And he left. Frankly, I think he was very offended and I'm okay with that. He did not write an offer. He leaves and on the other side of the wall was another realtor. I had no idea they were in the house. She comes over and says, That was the best explanation I've ever heard. Everybody should say that to her. I will. I had the president of the Bar Association write me an offer on a property unrepresented. And I said, you're kidding me, right? And he's like, no, I'm an attorney. I said, yeah, I get that, but really, you're not going to have representation. Really? I said, you don't save any money. I get paid twice as much. Thank you very much. You sure you don't want to hire a realtor? He's like, no, I'll do it myself. I said, great. Give me your proof of funds. And then he said, well, I don't have to do that. And I said, oh no, if you had a realtor, they would tell you I'm going to need proof of funds. And he said, well, you can go to my website and look me up. I said, your bank account's not there. I want proof of funds. And so next thing I know, I get a call from Jim Bringhurst and he goes, so I've got this client, he's an attorney. And I said, oh, I bet he's the president of the Bar Association. He said, yep. And I said, you're writing an offer for me? He said, I am. Thank you very much for sending him my way. I said, you got it. He was trying to go around Jim. Jim had helped him on trying to find a house, but he didn't have anything signed. So here he was going around Jim till he ran into me. Okay. So I have hard and fast rules of how I do business. I would suggest all of you in your businesses have hard and fast rules about how you do business. Okay. And being fair to your fellow realtors is really important. You do want to do that. Okay. Don't get yourself in trouble. Explain exactly how it goes. Okay. But again, I also watch at open houses as a side note, but I watch at open houses because I have a lot of people that'll end up shadowing me and then I'll watch them doing it. And somebody will walk in and one of the questions we ask, I think it's the 6th question I ask. Hold on, I have them in my purse because I carry them with me everywhere. Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah, that's one of them. But question number 1, Hiram, was how long have you been looking? Right? Wasn't that the first question I asked Hiram? And that's what got the answer. And I called Cameron. Okay. So then when they're wandered on a few other rooms, I always say to them, so what was it about this house or this area that brought you here today? Next one is if I waved or handed you my magic wand. And by the way, I always have a pen in my hand because I'm writing down their names when they come in and all of that, and their phone numbers and their emails. So then I shake my little pen at them and I go, Janet, if I handed you my magic wand, what day would you circle on the calendar to move into your new house? Okay, because if I ask them, when do you want to be in, they'll say what? I'm not in a hurry, right? Okay, but if we play just pretend, they'll give me a date. Okay, 4th one is, do you have your golden ticket? What do you think they say to that? What's the golden ticket? The golden ticket is your pre-approval letter. And they might say, well, first of all, they almost never have one, but they might say, oh, I'm not qualified or I'm not worried about it. And I mean, that's the common response. And I go, oh, I can tell you're not worried about it. And honestly, I'm not worried about it. Let me tell you who would be worried about it. It's going to be the seller. And if we're going to be competing with other offers, you're going to have to provide that. So you don't want to do this backwards. Matter of fact, why don't I do this, Janet? I don't mind. Why don't I call my lender, Mandy, and just have her reach out to you and she can email you your golden ticket. And all I'd ask you to do is make sure you keep it in your purse. Then when you find the perfect house, you're ready. Okay with that? Perfect. I'll do that. And I'll do that once I'm still at the open house. My 5th question, that's the one you asked, is who's helping you? Not do you have a realtor? It's who's helping you. Okay. And my last question is, if I find another house that would work for you, would you like me to call you? So let me tell you about that one. So I was in Immigration Canyon doing an open house, had 2 other agents with me shadowing, and people came through and they were there without their realtor because their realtor was out of town for the weekend, they said. And so we're chit-chatting. They're moving here from California. And I did the questions and I asked number 6 and she said, yeah, that'd be great. And so Veronica and Stan left and I'm brainstorming with the 2 agents I had with me. And I went, oh, there's one coming up. It's not ready yet. It's about 2 weeks out. So I called Veronica up and I said, you can't get in this house, but as long as you're here from California, driving through the neighborhood, seeing that's an area you want to look at, this is the address of the house. You might want to go check that out. So end of conversation. That was great. So on Monday, Veronica calls me and says, can you show me this other house? And I'm thinking to myself, I wish her realtor would get back in town. I mean, it's one thing to be nice, but I don't want to be interfering with the agency of another realtor. And I looked it up. It was a vacant house. And I said, okay, yeah. So I get to the house, meet them at this house in St. Mary's, and Stan, the husband's outside. And he said, Lee, by the way, just so you know, we don't have another realtor. It's just the standard thing we tell everybody. And Veronica likes you a lot and she's the decision maker. I went, okay, thank you very much. Sold my house. Okay. So it's amazing to me how if you just care about them and help them, how often it comes back to you. But what I see people do in an open house is, you know, they'll walk in to say Janet's open house and, you know, she'll ask, do you have a realtor? And they'll say yes. And then because they've said yes, Janet will then, you'd never do this, Janet, but Janet would then ignore them. It's like, okay, well, wander through. If you have any questions, just ask. But she stops asking the questions. She stops doing her job, which is to sell the house that she's holding open. But two, she's now treated Janet differently than we just treated Hiram. And I'm not okay with that. So you treat them all. If they have another realtor, if Cindy's their realtor, they are being treated like gold by me. And then I'm calling Cindy. Okay? So don't treat them differently because they have a realtor. Treat them as well as you would everybody else. And surprisingly, most of them have not signed anything. And suddenly when I'm having these kind of conversations and asking these kind of questions, it is not surprising for them to say, can we sit down for a minute? And we sit down at the kitchen table and they go, you know, I haven't signed anything. I haven't even met with this agent. They've just been sending me stuff. And I'll look at them and I go, are you trying to tell me you want my help? Is that what you're asking? I mean, I will ask it that way. I don't want to misinterpret. Because really, let's ask you this question. How many of you go out and show a house before you sign a buyer broker agreement? You're new. So I'm betting that's why you can say that, because I'm betting the rest of you who are not new have done that numerous times. You shouldn't, but I'm betting you have. And you're taught not to do it here. But you'd be amazed at how many buyers are walking around. Now, I hope that they go back to their agent. I mean, I'm taking their word for it that they have an agent, and I get the name of the agent. That's why I ask, who's helping you? Because I'm writing it right down next to the other. Okay? But you'd be amazed at how often they don't. So treating them well may lead you to more business. And if not, and you don't get more business, you may have sold the house. And if not that, you've still helped somebody with their dreams. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Remember my job description? And my mother says, it's so funny because out of the 5 of us kids, I like my job the best. I have the coolest job on the planet. I make people's dreams come true. And I get to meet the neatest people along the way doing that. Why wouldn't you love that? If you operate your business that way, it requires you to do certain things for a lot of people. And I'm like, do them. Okay. Any other objections that we have that you thought of while we were chit-chatting? Oh, we didn't do that one. Oh, that is the hardest one. So that may not even be, tell me your first name again. Tiffany, thanks, Tiff. So that may not even be an objection, Tiffany. That may actually end up being a condition. Meaning, like, if they don't get divorced, they're not going to move. That would be a condition. If I don't get the job transfer, we're not going to move. That would be a condition. There are some things that you may not be able to help them with. So it's not an objection, it's a condition. But let's talk about it. I do think that's the number one challenge right now is where do we go to? And so it's one of the things when we're sitting down and doing, even before I start asking the questions, I always start with, tell me a little, Hiram, about what your plans are, what your goals are, what your timing is. Just tell me about what's brought me here today. What are you guys thinking about doing? And then they kind of tell me we've outgrown the house, or the house is too big, or whatever the reason is. I am so sorry. Oh my gosh, and that's a past client. Okay. Um, so let's say that they're downsizing or upsizing or something like that. And then I would say to them, so here's the good news. The market is great for you selling, but the challenge is you then become a buyer and finding a house. So would your main goal be, Hiram, to go driveway to driveway? Is that what you were hoping to do?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's getting harder and harder to do right now. So if that isn't possible, and the reason I say that is because right now, if we went out and looked at a house, you'd, assuming we'd find one that you liked, you'd have to write the offer subject to the sale of the house, wouldn't you? Okay. And if they've got 15 offers, they're not going to take the one that's subject to anything like that. So we need a plan B. So our plan B would be, where would you go? So do you have family you go to? Do you own a duplex and one side is vacant? You're going to rent an apartment? What's your plan B?
Plan B is not sell the house, I guess.
Okay. That's an option. Absolutely, that's an option. Okay. So are we moving down or are we moving up, Hiram?
Yeah, I don't want to be upgrading to a house. I mean, the kids are getting bigger. We want to have a dog. We want to have a backyard. We want to kind
Okay.
of,
So the house we're going to buy is probably bigger and more expensive than this house.
yes.
So let's think about that thought for just a second. So your house has gone up a lot in the 3 years that you lived here, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And the house that you're buying,
It's more expensive than what my house is currently, has gone up as well.
yeah, and the percentage is probably the same, which means the amount is a lot more. So waiting and staying in your house economically doesn't sound like a really smart move to me. What do you think?
Well, do you think it's gonna, the housing market's gonna crash?
No, no, I don't. No, we've got an inventory problem.
So you're saying is it's either now or later or never?
Well, I'm saying you can stay where you're at, and someday you can move, but the challenge you have is your house will have gone up this much, and the house, if you were downsizing, if you had the big house and you were going down, I wouldn't be concerned for you.
You're saying the percent of appreciation is gonna go up higher?
Yeah, yeah. Like we're up like 12% since the first of the year right now.
So what do you think my option should be if I don't have any family in the state of Utah?
Yeah,
And I don't want, I mean, with an apartment, you usually sign a year lease where you're stuck on that. And finding a rental is crazy hard right now.
yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, you're right. So one, I think we look to try to find something, first of all. But again, I think our odds of getting an offer accepted are pretty slim. And now I'm going to typically go through how much they own the house. Do we have enough that we could get pre-qualified, not make it subject to the loan? So we go through all the financial gyrations. So let's pretend that we did all those. And then the other alternative is that we do a temporary, that we move everything to a storage unit and you do a temporary.
It's temporary.
Well, temporary housing might be doing an extended stay kind of thing, renting an Airbnb, not finding a lease. And by the way, there are places that'll do a 6-month lease. So that might be an option. I've got a lady friend who, runs a property management company. She might have something come up. But I've had clients that have had to do this, and they've even done month to month. You'll pay a little bit more to do month to month, but not much. And that gives you the flexibility. But truthfully, I think that's what'll have to happen in order for you to get into a house right now. Okay, Janet?
By the by, on renting, even if you sign a year lease, there's usually a clause in there that if you pay like an extra month, you can, or two, you can get out of that
Yeah.
lease. So.
Exactly.
I know some apartments for 3 months. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Yep.
Only question, I mean, in that case, because I have a buyer exactly in this case
Mhm.
right now, and
go out and make offers and try to find them a home that we can go. I mean, the problem is that they have that contingency, right?
None of us are going to accept your
I
offer.
know. So that's why I'm like,
Stop it.
well, I haven't done anything with them yet.
Good. Don't.
We're trying to find a rental, but it's
Yeah.
so difficult. to
Yeah.
find a rental.
So the reality is, don't any of you give your buyer the thought that it is possible for them to get an offer accepted in this market that's subject to the house selling. It's not going to happen, and it is sinful for you to give them that impression. Okay?
I don't know why it's not bad though. No, not that, but the sense of like getting an offer. If you know how stuff's gonna, because I did my first listing this year, we did end up taking an offer that was subject to their house. I looked at the house was good, and it went through fine. There's no issue
Uh-huh.
with it. It's just kind of like interesting because my thought process, my listing is like, well, I know how shit's selling in this market, but this is sell fast. I'm sure theirs would sell fast, and theirs was the best offer. So we gave it to them and it worked out fine. But,
Okay. Congratulations.
but
Yeah.
still.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I have 60 offers.
yeah.
Why would I bother with a what if? It's not going to happen. I've done it that way, but not since January. Don't have to.
Would it be better to list their home, get it and ask for a, 60-day buyback?
Yes.
and then
So,
buy the home?
The one I told you at 1.2 million that we sold at 1.5 million a week ago. So I had 7 offers on that. Here was my biggest thing. It wasn't top dollar that was the most important to them. The house they're buying in Bountiful, they have to close on that one on the 15th of June. So their big thing was they needed to close on this house before the 15th of June. And they can't take possession in Bountiful till August 4th. So they needed to be able to stay in their house till August 4th. But I had 6 offers, or 7 offers. 6 out of the 7 met our timeline. So then it became about price. Okay? And none of them were subject to a sale. Okay? You had a hand up.
No, I'm back on the way back. I see
Okay.
some of
Yeah,
them. Someone beat that buyer.
right. So here's another interesting tidbit. I talked to my lender, Mandy at Intercap, and because we are needing some of these extra time in the house, you know how on loans, there's a timeline where you can do a rent back to the seller, but it's limited. Yeah, 60 is your top, 30 on FHA and VAs. Underwriters will now allow for more than 60. Don't know, I haven't pushed the limit, but she said we can get it now. Just because they're not changing the language. They just understand that the market that we're in. So I do think that the example of staying in the house and doing a rent back, by the way, I did a rent back to some sellers in immigration, and we gave it to them for 40 days for $10. My clients are paying a rent back on the house in Holiday that I just sold. And we just did fair market, what we thought was a low end of fair market rent. I had other people who were willing to rent it to us for free for that period of time, but that wasn't enough of a difference based on the price. So we were willing to pay them $2,500 a month in rent and get to stay there. And that was our suggestion, not the buyers. I think the buyers would have done it for free, but we felt it was fair. They were offering a very gracious price. Okay. So I do think using that timeline of a rent back and know that maybe you don't have to be limited. Check with your lender when you do it. Mandy had to go and talk to the underwriter, but I'm guessing if they can do it, you can probably do it in other places and just. On a VA, that's impressive. Wow. And the lender knows. Okay, good. Yeah, I was gonna say it's loan fraud if you don't let the lender know. So definitely let the lender know. But that's why we're checking with that. Okay, any others that we have? If not, I've gone over time and I apologize, but I look forward to seeing all of you next month and knowing that you will have done 20 practices. By the way, you should practice the scripts we've just had. They did record this.